History keeps leaving behind the same warning, and over the last 500 years, that warning has already brought down 3 global superpowers. Right now, in 2025, the United States appears to be moving through that very same pattern, step by step, choice by choice. It is almost as if the country is following the exact script that ended in disaster every single time before. In 1590, Spain stood as the wealthiest empire on earth. It controlled enormous amounts of the world's gold and silver. Its military power dominated Europe. Its currency was trusted across the globe. Yet within just 80 years, Spain was bankrupt, reduced to a second-tier power, and it never truly recovered. In 1914, Britain ruled over the largest empire in human history. The sun never set on British territory. The pound sterling served as the world's reserve currency. But within 40 years, that empire had vanished. Its currency lost its dominance, and Britain became little more than America's junior partner. In 1991, the Soviet Union was still one of the world's 2 great superpowers. It had nuclear weapons, global influence, and satellites stretching across the planet. Then, in only 900 days, it disappeared. Not because of invasion or war, but because of economic collapse from within. 3 different times, 3 different superpowers, 3 total breakdowns, and every one of them followed the same sequence. Now here is the part that should truly unsettle you. The United States has already moved through 5 of the 7 stages. It is not merely approaching this pattern anymore. It is already deep inside it. This is the story of how empires fall, why they always convince themselves they are different, and why the numbers suggest America could be next. And it is moving faster than most people are willing to admit. Before breaking down that pattern, it's important to understand what imperial collapse really looks like. Not the version from textbooks, but the real-world version. What it actually means when a superpower dies. Imperial collapse does not begin with an invasion or a battlefield defeat. It begins with economic exhaustion. The empire stretches itself beyond what it can actually support. Military bases spread across 150 countries, wars unfolding on multiple fronts, promises that cannot be kept, and debts that can no longer be repaid. At first, the decline is hard to see. The currency still circulates. The military still wins battles. The government still makes bold promises. But underneath it all, the foundation is already breaking apart. Resources are being wasted. Productive strength starts shrinking. The most talented people begin to leave. Then the decline speeds up. Allies begin to hedge their bets. Enemies test the edges. Trade partners search for alternatives. The reserve currency slowly loses its grip. And suddenly, the very strengths that once made the empire powerful turn into weaknesses. The currency that everyone once demanded starts flooding back home. The military spread around the world becomes impossible to sustain. The promises once backed by overwhelming force become hollow. This is not theory. This is exactly what happened to Spain, to Britain, and to the Soviet Union. And it happened because they made the same choices that America's making now. They believed their power would last forever. They overstretched militarily. They weakened their currency. And they refused to accept reality until collapse was already in motion. Now look at how it happened 3 times through the exact same sequence. Start with the first true global empire, Spain, in the 1500s and 1600s. This was the original model. After Columbus reached the Americas in 1492, Spain rose into the first genuine world power. It conquered the Aztec and Inca empires and seized control of the richest gold and silver mines ever found. By 1550, Spanish galleons were bringing home around 200 tons of silver each year. By 1600, that number had risen to more than 400 tons annually. Spain controlled Europe's money supply. The Spanish real became the world's reserve currency. Everyone wanted Spanish silver. And this is where the pattern begins, with a nation that controls the money of the world and starts believing that makes it untouchable, King Philip II, who ruled from 1556 to 1598, possessed more wealth than perhaps any monarch in history, and he poured that wealth into empire. Stage 1 was military overextension. Spain fought wars on every front at once, against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against France and Italy, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against England's navy, and in conflicts across the Philippines and the Americas. By 1580, Spain had military obligations on 4 continents. The cost was enormous. Half of Spain's revenue was going to the military, and even that was not enough. Stage 2 was currency debasement. The Spanish crown could not pay its bills with taxation alone, so it did what failing empires so often do. It debased its currency. Copper was mixed into silver coins. A coin that should have been pure silver became 50% copper, then 75% copper. The face value remained unchanged, but the real value collapsed. By 1600, Spanish silver coins contained barely any real silver. Merchants stopped accepting them at full value. Inflation surged. Stage 3 was the debt spiral. Spain borrowed constantly from Italian bankers, German bankers, and anyone else willing to lend. By 1557, less than 20 years into Philip's rule, Spain declared bankruptcy. It defaulted, restructured, and then borrowed again. It declared bankruptcy again in 1560, again in 1575, and again in 1596. 4 bankruptcies in 40 years. Each time, promises of reform were made. Each time, Spain returned to borrowing and overspending. Stage 4 was the loss of productive capacity. This is what many people fail to understand about Spain's collapse. In der Star, Darby worry Wunster. Having all the gold and silver in the world actually destroyed them. When money seems unlimited, production fades. Why grow food when imports can be bought? Why build ships when they can be purchased? Why innovate when wealth can simply be spent? Spanish nobility saw work as something beneath them. Manufacturing weakened. Agriculture stalled. Wealth was used to import goods from abroad. The gold and silver arriving from the Americas flowed right back out again to pay for French wine, Italian silk, and Dutch products. Spain became a pipeline. Wealth passed through it, but it did not stay there. By 1600, Spain was producing almost nothing of real value. It had become completely dependent on imports and entirely reliant on silver to pay for everything. Once the silver mines started declining and production began falling, the entire system broke apart. Stage 5 was social decay. As the economy failed, crime surged. Beggars crowded the streets of Madrid. Productive citizens emigrated. The most capable minds left for France, England, and the Netherlands, places that were building, inventing, and expanding. Spain was left with bureaucrats, soldiers, and clergy. Few were creating wealth while many were consuming it. By 1640, Spain lost Portugal. By 1650, it lost the Netherlands, its richest territory. By 1700, the Spanish Empire was little more than an empty shell. It still looked large on a map, but economically it was dead. In less than a century, Spain went from the world's dominant superpower to a secondary state, and it never regained what it lost. Modern Spain became a regional European nation, refined and historic, but no longer relevant at the center of world power. The descendants of conquerors became a tourist attraction. That is what imperial collapse looks like. Now move ahead 300 years to Britain in the 1900s, the empire where the sun never set. At its height, Britain controlled 25% of the world's land and ruled over 400 million people. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Major trade contracts were priced in pounds. Central banks held British bonds. London was the financial capital of the world. And just like Spain had done 300 years earlier, Britain believed that dominance would last forever. But the same pattern was already unfolding. Stage 1 was military overextension. By 1900, Britain had military obligations everywhere: India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Pacific, and the Caribbean. It had to defend territory on 6 continents. The cost was massive. Then World War I began in 1914, and Britain faced a choice: Stay out and let Europe destroy itself, or join the war and risk bankrupting the empire in order to win. Britain chose war. World War I cost Britain more than $40 billion, roughly equal to $1 trillion in today's money. It borrowed heavily, especially from the United States. By 1918, Britain owed America billions. The world's creditor had become a debtor. Yes, Britain won the war. Yes, it kept the empire. Yes, it believed recovery was still possible. But it was wrong. Stage 2 was currency debasement. The pound sterling was supposed to be backed by gold, yet the war had drained Britain's gold reserves. Gold had been shipped to America in exchange for weapons, food, and supplies. By 1920, Britain's gold reserves were only half of what they had been in 1914. Even so, Britain tried to maintain the pound's old value. In 1925, it returned to the gold standard at the pre-war exchange rate. In the the problem was simple: the pound was overvalued. British exports became too expensive. Manufacturing weakened. Unemployment rose. To protect the currency, the government kept interest rates high. That policy crushed the domestic economy. By 1931, Britain could no longer maintain the illusion. It abandoned the gold standard. The pound lost 25% of its value overnight. The world's reserve currency had just admitted it could no longer keep its word. Stage 3 was the debt spiral. Britain never truly recovered from the debt of World War I. Then World War II arrived. Another $120 billion in cost. More borrowing from America. By 1945, Britain owed the United States and Canada more than $30 billion, a figure larger than Britain's entire GDP. The war had been won, but the empire was over. Britain could no longer defend it, afford it, or sustain it. Stage 4 was the loss of empire. In 1947, Britain gave up India, the crown jewel and the source of wealth, for 2 centuries. After that, the rest began to slip away. Over the next 20 years, Britain lost Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the Caribbean. By 1970, the British Empire existed only in memory and in history books. Stage 5 was currency collapse. The pound continued falling. In 1940, 1 pound was worth $4.03. By 1950, it was $2.80. By 1970, it was $2.40. By 1980, it had fallen even further. The global reserve currency had been reduced to a regional currency. Britain tried to maintain the image of power, a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, nuclear weapons, and a special relationship with America. But the reality was obvious. Britain had become a former empire, a museum of past greatness. Its power was gone, and it never returned. Now consider the most recent case, the Soviet Union from 1945 to 1991. After World War II, the USSR emerged as a superpower. It had nuclear weapons, a massive military, control over Eastern Europe, and achievements in space. It believed it represented the future. Communism would bury capitalism. The Soviet model would triumph. For 45 years, it competed directly with the United States. It matched America in military force, built more tanks, more missiles, more troops, but under the surface, its economy was rotting. Stage 1 was military overextension. The Soviet Union spent 15 to 20% of GDP on the military, roughly triple America's share. It had to keep pace with American technology, American reach, and American alliances. Yet its economy was only a fraction of America's size. It was fighting in Afghanistan, supporting Cuba, Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, and Ethiopia. Wherever America had influence, the Soviet Union felt compelled to answer. The cost became unbearable. Stage 2 was economic stagnation. The Soviet economy stopped growing in the 1970s. Oil revenues kept it alive, but very little else worked. Factories produced useless goods. Farms underperformed. Technology lagged decades behind the West. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was importing grain. A nation with some of the best farmland on earth could not feed itself. Why? Because central planning fails. Because innovation dies under control. because production disappears when incentive disappears. Stage 3 was currency collapse. The ruble was never a truly trusted currency. It could not function properly in global exchange. Even Soviet citizens did not trust it. When possible, they preferred dollars. The government had to buy foreign goods using gold and oil because no one wanted rubles. By 1985, oil prices fell. Soviet gold reserves were shrinking. The country was running out of real money. Stage 4 was the loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Eastern Europe broke away. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany, all gone within a year. The very satellite states that had given the Soviet Union strategic depth suddenly vanished. Moscow could not stop it because it was broke. Stage 5 was total collapse. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union officially ceased to exist. Only 900 days separated the fall of the Berlin Wall from the dissolution of the USSR. No invasion, no great external war, just internal economic implosion. The military could not be paid. The government could not function. The ruble became worthless. A superpower armed with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed because it failed economically from within. The pattern appeared again. Overextension, currency failure, debt, loss of empire, collapse. And now comes the part that should keep people awake at night. The United States is moving through that same pattern. Stage 1, military overextension. America has more than 750 military bases in 80 countries. It has troops in around 150 countries. It is committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, operating in the Middle East and countering both China and Russia. Its military budget is around $850 billion a year, more than the next 10 countries combined. And even that is not enough. The system is stretched thin, equipment is aging, recruitment is falling. Commitments are multiplying beyond what can realistically be fulfilled. If China moved on Taiwan, if Russia pushed into NATO territory, if Iran shut down the Persian Gulf, the United States could not respond to everything at once. That is overextension, just like Spain, just like Britain, just like the Soviet Union. Check. Stage 2, currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became a purely fiat currency. Since 2000, the money supply has expanded dramatically. Since 2020, trillions more have been created. The dollar has lost most of its purchasing power compared with the early 1970s. America is not diluting silver coins with copper. It is using a modern version of the same process by creating money without hard restraint. The method has changed. The result has not. Debasement. Check. Stage 3, debt spiral. The United States owes tens of trillions of dollars. Debt has climbed to a level exceeding annual GDP by a large margin. Interest payments alone are nearing $1 trillion each year. America is spending more on interest than on national defense. Deficits continue every year. In 2024 alone, the deficit ran deep even during a period of economic growth and peacetime. The country is borrowing to pay the cost of previous borrowing. That is a debt spiral. Spain defaulted repeatedly. Britain borrowed until it was broken. The Soviet Union ran out of money. America is walking the same road. Check. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. America no longer makes what it once did. It designs, consumes, finances, and outsources. But it does not produce at the level a superpower needs to. Manufacturing has been hollowed out and moved abroad to China, Mexico, Vietnam, and elsewhere. The United States imports hundreds of billions of dollars more than it exports each year. It relies on foreign supply chains for medicine, electronics, steel, and even components tied to military readiness. Just like Spain became dependent on imports while silver flowed outward, America is becoming dependent on imports while dollars flow outward. And just like Spain, when that financial flow weakens, the vulnerability becomes impossible to hide. Check. Stage 5, social decay. Trust in institutions has fallen to historic lows. Crime is rising in many places. Homelessness is worsening. Drug overdoses kill roughly 100,000 Americans every year. Many of the most capable people are either leaving, disengaging, or withdrawing from the system entirely. Fertility rates are collapsing. Political dysfunction has become total. The country cannot agree on major problems. It cannot fix them. It struggles even to build. Signs of decay are visible everywhere, but people keep pretending everything is normal. It is not normal. Check. America is already at stage 5 out of 7. The Soviet Union reached stage 5 before complete collapse. So did Britain. Spain lasted longer, but the sequence remained the same. The end has not fully arrived yet, but the country is deep in the process. Stage 6 is the loss of reserve currency status. That is the point when allies begin diversifying away. Trade begins shifting into other currencies. Dollars start returning home because the world no longer needs to hold them in the same way. Early signals are already visible. BRICS countries are exploring alternatives. Central banks are buying gold. China and Russia are trading in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia has shown willingness to accept yuan in some oil transactions. The fractures are beginning. Stage 7 is collapse, not a slow, graceful decline, but a sudden breakdown. The Soviet Union went from superpower to non-existent in 900 days. Britain lost its empire in about 20 years. Spain took longer, but the destination was the same. Once the reserve currency fails, once the debt burden becomes impossible, once the military can no longer be financed, the process does not remain orderly. It turns violent, fast, and brutal, and everyone who once believed it could never happen to them learns the same truth every empire eventually learns. Yes, it can happen here. Yes, it does happen. 3 empires already followed this pattern: Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. Each believed it was exceptional. Each believed it was different. Each believed the rules would not apply. Every one of them was wrong. And now America is telling itself the same comforting story: that it is different, that it has better technology, that it has the dollar, that it is America. But the pattern does not care about national mythology. The pattern is mathematical. No nation can spend beyond its means forever. No empire can maintain global dominance without productive capacity. No currency can be debased endlessly without consequences. And once stages 1 through 5 have been completed, stages 6 and 7 become increasingly difficult to avoid. The sequence begins to lock into place. The only real question left is timing. Maybe there are 10 years left, maybe 5, maybe less. But the pattern suggests collapse is coming. And when it comes, it will not move slowly. It will arrive suddenly. A currency crisis will trigger a debt crisis. The debt crisis will trigger a political crisis. And overnight, a superpower can become a warning from history. The reserve currency becomes regional. The empire becomes memory. It has happened 3 times before. The pattern says America may be next. Since 2020, every stage has accelerated. More money has been created. More debt has piled up. Military commitments have expanded. Production has been hollowed out further. Society has become even more fractured. America is not casually walking this road anymore. It is racing down it, and if you understand the pattern, the end is no longer hard to see. Maybe there is still a way out. Maybe America can accomplish what Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union never managed to do. Maybe it can reform, rebuild, and restore itself. Maybe this time truly is different. But the pattern argues otherwise. The math argues otherwise. And history, which has watched empires collapse in the same way again and again, suggests that the lesson may be about to arrive the hard way. If this made you see more clearly where the world stands in this sequence, then keep following Dalio Marco Mind, because when stage 6 and stage 7 arrive, understanding why it happened will matter more than ever. The answers are not hidden somewhere ahead of us. They were written long ago in the past, and Dalio Marco Mind will show you where to look.